Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second webinar in the series, The Player, the Coach, the Person. My name's Chris Brown from Ipswich Football in Dubai. Delighted to welcome an old teammate of mine from our YTS days who went on to play for Wigan, Norwich, Ipswich, Crystal Palace, Colchester, and who is now the lead under 23 coach at Norwich City. Hello, Mr. Wright. How are we?
All right, mate. Afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, we've got a few people in now, so we'll crack on. I was actually thinking earlier, Dave, that it was we're only about 4 years away from it being 30 years since I first went up to Crewe, and one of my first recollections was going up there, and Dario had asked to go up and see what I thought of it, and I was going to sign for Chelsea. I was at Luton at the time, but I was going to sign for Chelsea in the new season, but asked me to come up, and one of the first recollections is you and a lad called Colin Webster, who in the changing room, and with the personalities in the changing room, and give me a load of grief as I was the only Southerner, mimicking my voice, and so it kind of depressed me. It was a nice recollection, but it depressed me at the same time. Isn't it coming up for 30 years?
Amazing, isn't it? Where that's gone. We had a great time though, didn't we? Great time.
We did, to be fair. It was at that time. It's always fond memories of the time at Crewe, and like going straight into that. Really, is obviously coming through the system at Crewe, and speaking to Seth about it on Saturday as well, and really just why was it such a special time? And you've obviously gone to a number of clubs after that, and obviously you've not come through the system at those clubs, but do you think you would have had the same time at those clubs as you did do Crewe?
I don't know. Probably like many of the lads. I know the likes of Kenny Lunt had opportunities to go to Liverpool numerous times. I had a couple of opportunities coming through, but I just enjoyed it so much at Crewe. I enjoyed the lads. I enjoyed the coaching, the environment. Just loved it. And there's no, I think that's the reason why. Well, one of the reasons why, because of that environment that the likes of Dario and Steve Holland created, and Neil Baker. Got to remember Bates, because he was a real big part of it as well.
Yeah,
one of the reasons why I think they produced so many players that went on and represented the country many times.
I mean, and you not just talking about players here, are you? I mean, looking the other day, think about the other day, and obviously speaking to people, you got yourself at Norwich as 23s, you got Rich Walker, who was a year younger than us, who's a 23s coach at Stoke. You've got James Collins, obviously at Wolves, the under 23s coach. You've got Neil Critchley, who's obviously just left Liverpool as a 23s boss to join Blackpool. So it's that, I think it was that education that coming through with Dario and with Steve Holland.
Oh, unbelievable! I don't think I'm not quite sure you understand how good it was at the time. I think you take it for granted. It's only when you look back now, like you're saying, look back 30 years, that you really understand how good your education was. And I've spoke to a lot of people about Crewe over the years, and I think if people think it was a lovely environment, and it was all nice, and it was all cotton wool, and it wasn't. And he was probably up there, one of the most ruthless coaches that I've come up, and that was from, it didn't matter if you were under 9 or you'd played 400 league games. He ran that club from top to bottom, and he was tough. He was tough. But it always came from a good place with him. I felt he always wanted you to succeed. But if you took your foot off the gas in any way or stepped out of line, he would definitely bring you back in.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, that's what I found interesting talking to Seth. Is what came out of it there is that the development against winning, the difference in terms of the pressure when Seth went to other clubs and he saw managers under the pressure that are on to get results. Yet Dario placed that pressure in a different way, didn't he? He placed that pressure to get the best out of yourself. It wasn't about results. It was about you being a better player. And that, I mean, I suppose there's a conversation to have there around, you know, development over results and what's the best kind of environment to create.
I think we were. I talk about me. I think I was definitely lucky, and I think we were definitely lucky. All the boys that came through, because, you know, getting into the team at such a young age, 100% you were making mistakes, but he stuck with you. He put you in again and again and again. We were in the Championship at the time, so apart from very early on, I think it was about 18. I think I played 2 games: Sheffield United away, Crystal Palace at home. I did well at Sheffield United. I was okay against Crystal Palace, and a bit similar to what Seth said the other day. It was like bang, gone. Like I was out of the team for a number of months, and I had to get back into it. But it was once I got sort of back into it, I think that's when. I mean, I wasn't developing in a reserve side or an under 23 side or an under 18 side really. I was developing in the Championship, and there was only a club and obviously a manager who basically ran the club like that who could do that. Because obviously I was making mistakes, and it highlighted to me more when I then moved to Wigan, because I went from an environment of development. You know, it was all about individuals, developing them as an individual, and then the team next. Don't get me wrong, results were important. Of course they were important, but it was I think the priority was creating individuals. Then all of a sudden I went into Wigan, and it was a massive shock to the system, because that was all about winning at all costs. Right. We don't care how we win, what we do. It was all about winning. It wasn't about developing players. There was no individual stuff or anything like that. It was just like bang, win, and that was definitely a big shock to me. Like, because I went there at 9 at Crewe and left at 22, something like that. So for being in that environment for such a long time to then go into that other one was like, wow, what I walked into it.
Yeah, and when you went to that, I mean, that Wigan team that you went to, they went into the Championship, then you went up to the Premier League, didn't you? So you play about 20 odd games in the Championship before they went up. Is that right?
Don't know, mate. I mean, I'm not even. I really don't know my stats. I think, but yeah, I played a number of games in that season. We got promoted to the Premier League, which was a great achievement, especially for a club like Wigan. You know, it's a rugby league town really, and what Paul and Paul Jewell created there in terms of that winning mentality and that desire to win was excellent. And like I say, for a little club like Wigan to get promoted to the Premier League was a great achievement.
Yeah, what was your relationship like with him? I mean, because you went up to the Premier League, and obviously then they bought Pascal Chimbonda, and you know, obviously he done very well. But your relationship with Paul Jewell, and what was, you know, what were the takeouts from working under him?
I think that was I'd gone from Crewe, where we didn't really buy players. We bought a few. It was all about producing your own, and then you went into an environment which was all about winning. So it was obviously we had Leighton Baines at left back, we had Pascal at right back, and both of them were flying, absolutely flying. So a lot of my time at the club when they're in the Premier League, a lot of it was watching really on the bench, or you know, was watching games and taking it in. But my relationship with Paul was fine. Even when it came to the end where I had to get out because I'd spent so much time sort of watching. You know, I'm a footballer. I wanted to play.
Yeah.
He didn't want me to go. I wanted to go. So in the end, it was we had a few conversations on the phone, and in the end, he let me go, which was obviously when I moved on to Ipswich. But with Paul, the things him was a manager was that real like desire to win. He it was fitness and winning were poor. My first pre-season going into Wigan, I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. Just, it blew me away. And it taught me a lot. For the rest of my career, it taught me a lot that I was going into pre-season quite fit, but that's what pre-season's for, to get you fit. I remember one of the first runs we had in my group was Teeley, Lee McCulloch, Jimmy Bullard. They were monsters. And we went for this run, and I had to stay with them, and I couldn't stay with them. And that was a massive lesson to me. How fit I was during that period was, it was probably the fittest I've ever been. And that real desire to win at all costs was real big things with what I took away from Paul.
And from a playing perspective, obviously, being involved in, some of the games while you're playing in the Premier League, and you got to the League Cup final at the time. We spoke the other day that there's a story you mentioned about Man United, about see how you would probably come on to with Roy Keane at Ipswich, but just how you conduct yourself as players, and the I suppose that difference from going from a small club like Crewe to playing in the Premier League. What was the difference, apart from the actually training itself, is being in that environment? How did you find that?
It was great. I mean, Paul made some great signings. Emil Esky, Ariane Dazou was an unbelievable signing. Ariane came in and became our captain. Looking at a senior pro, who'd obviously had an excellent career. Looking at him, learning so much from him. He was brilliant, Ariane. Absolutely brilliant. Obviously with Emil, and then seeing the likes of Leighton Baines and Lee McCulloch just growing. Jimmy Bullard, mad as an atter. Just the dressing room was great. It was a great dressing room, and I think that was one of the reasons that enabled that dressing room to achieve what it achieved, because it had so many different personalities in it, but all the personalities were winners. And I thought it was what a real top dressing room. Yeah.
I mean, we'll do some questions coming through now, but we'll do all the questions at the end. And then going to Ipswich under Jim Magilton, you had a decent spell there, didn't you?
Yeah, 3 years. So at Ipswich, I came in and I settled in really quickly at Ipswich, and I think it was because it was a similar environment to Crewe. I came in. Jim had a style of play which really suited me. Jim was, as a player, Jim was a real good footballer, and he played like that as well. His style of play was like that. But he also had 2 coaches. He had Brian Crewe and Steve Foley with him, and they were real development coaches. Right. So Jim was sort of like driven to win, and Steve and Brian they really wanted to develop you. So that suited me. That suited me down to the ground. Straight away, and I think that's why I settled in so quick. I had obviously an extremely rough period a few months into it, which unfortunately, like my dad passed away and that, but I think that environment and that family environment helped me so much get through that and come out the other side a lot easier than maybe in other environments.
Yeah, it's a great fella, your dad. A lot of time for him. That's one of the things we're going to talking about, a kind of family club and an environment you create is what. That's one of the first things that my dad will always say, is that when we went up there and your mum and dad, Webby's mum and dad, made him feel so, comfortable, coming up to a new team and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it was.
I think it's massive, and I think that's one of the things why Norwich, since Stuart's come in, I'll probably talk about Stu later, but they make you feel like you belong to it, and I think it's so important. Yeah. It's so important. Being comfortable in an environment and feeling like you belong to it and you contribute to it. I think it's so important, not just for the players, staff, and fans alike.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then, I mean, obviously, you know, Jim, as you goes, and you have Roy Keane, and you know, I'm not going to obviously ask you to talk about Roy Keane in any shape. You're still in football, and obviously, I've heard different stories from different people about Roy. But what are the positives you take out of Roy being a manager there? What did you take away from him being there?
Standards to start. His standards were so high, so high, and from everything as well. From your training, timekeeping was the big one for Roy. I think Ian Wright was on the TV the other day or something. We spoke, didn't we? Where Ian Wright, even now, said he'd meet him for lunch at 1:15, and Ian Wright said he turned up at 17 minutes past, and Roy wasn't there, and he rang Roy, and Roy was like, "No, I've gone. I'm not coming back now. That's it." He said 1:15, and gone. And it tickled me a bit, that, because that's exactly what it was like. His standards were so high. Everything from the coach to timings to food to literally everything. It was that was a huge learning curve, not just for me but for everyone, and it's something that I've definitely taken off into my coaching. You know, there's no point doing it 95%. There's no point.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no point. You got to do it. You got to max it out. You got to max everything out. Standards have got to be high, and if you do that, then you give yourself a hell of a chance of achieving what you want to achieve.
Yeah, and I mean, you weren't prolific in terms of your goals, were you? But you got an important goal while you were at Ipswich.
What do you mean? 9? I get 9. Well, 9 in what? Oh, yeah.
I thought you said you didn't know your stats.
Well, there wasn't that many to count, was it? So, yeah.
Was it the goal against Norwich?
Oh yeah, I scored. That was Jim was in charge then. Yeah, so we were 1-0 down at Carr Road, and yeah, it was about a 3-yard tapping. So well, they all count. You know what I mean? You got to be in there.
Scored a decent couple at Crewe, to be fair. And then, I mean, I'm kind of skirting over your playing career, kind of doing you a disservice here. But so I want to get to the coaching and what we're here on to talk about. But how did the move to Palace come about?
Well, I had a conversation with Roy. Roy called us in with a couple of weeks left of the. No, it wasn't. It was a week left of the season. I think our final game might have been Sheffield United, I think, at home. And he called me in and said he wasn't going to give me anything. So, and that was it. That was the not going to give you anything. It's done. So you sort of just go off and seen the season out. And I was actually driving. I was driving somewhere. I don't know where I was going. My phone rang and it was a number that I didn't know. I actually don't normally answer numbers that I don't know. I normally let it go through the answer machine. If they leave a message, then great. But if they really want you, they'll ring straight back. But for some reason, I answered it, and it was George Burley. And he said he was taking over at Crystal Palace, and he wanted me to sign. And it snowballed quite quickly, to be honest with you, because we'd actually sold our house. Well, we'd agreed to sell our house because I was either going to go to Preston or Leeds. I was supposed to be signing for. Right. So it was like, right, we need to sell our house and we're going to go back home. We're going to go back up north. And it didn't really matter as long as we lived at home. Both clubs were in striking distance, so it's fine. And then Crystal Palace come about. And to be fair, Leeds and Preston were sort of dragging their feet slightly. And Crystal Palace went, no, here's like a 2-year contract with an option and this, that, and the other. And I thought, right, let's get it done. At least my future and my family's futures, short-term futures sorted.
Yeah. What was it like at Palace at that point? Because they were struggling, weren't they, in the Championship? Yeah,
it was because they'd just come out of administration. So literally, Crystal Palace could have gone under. I think Steve Parish ended up buying it. We didn't have, George didn't have a lot to start with, obviously, a club coming out of administration. The team was a mishmash of ex-senior pros, young, literally academy kids. The squad wasn't very big at all. I mean, we're going to play Leeds away, and it was such a young team. It was so young, and we got murdered. And then I think George ended up leaving the club, and Dougie Freeman, who was assisting George, took over. And Dougie brought in Tony Popovich, Lenny Lawrence, and it took off. It was strange because when Dougie took over, he called a few of those senior boys in, so it was like myself and Paddy McCarthy and Julian Speroni and maybe Darren Ambrose. We were in his office, and he said, "This is what I'm going to do. I need you to run the dressing room. I'll run everything else." And it sounded like what he was going to do. It was like, it's a lot of work that I can't see that happening. But by the time pre-season came of next season, it was done. The environment that he'd created, I think the boys that he brought in, all of a sudden he brought the likes of like Mile Jedinek in, and Glenn Murray came in, and Wilfred Zaha was a year older, Nathaniel Klein was a year older, Anthony Gardner came in. All of a sudden, Jermaine Easter came in. The group changed, and we had the best. I loved playing for all the clubs that I played for, but in terms of dressing rooms and professionals within a dressing room, the Crystal Palace dressing room was by far the best dressing room I've played in. It was ruthless in terms of having a laugh. There was nothing off limits, but it was great. There was a switch that got flicked, and when it was business, training, gym, game time, it was on. And it was for them 2 years playing in that dressing room was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, to be honest, it doesn't surprise me. I've done my UEFA B licence through the PFA, and Dougie Freeman was on that, and so was Tony Popovich, actually. There was some fairly big name players on it. To be fair, Hasselbank, and there's quite a number on there, and he was by far the best on it. Like, in terms of his manner, in terms of how he coached, just how he. Everything he did really on that course, and you could kind of tell that he's going to be top him.
I really enjoyed. I mean, he treated you as an individual as well. Because I lived away from home because my wife and kids didn't come to London. So just little things give me an extra day off here and there, and I'd argue I don't want it. I'm staying now, and it sort of forced me to go away and spend time with the family. It was massive, Dougie. When we're into work, but when we finish, gone. Like, go and spend time with your family. Make sure it's a really, really important time. Yeah. So it was very, very good. And obviously with Lenny Lawrence, who's managed and coached and been part of, I don't know, thousands of games, probably thousands, with him by his side, and Tony Popovich, great, really top coach. He went off and I think he won the
Champions League. He won the Asian Championship for Western Sydney, I think it was, a few years back, didn't he? He done very well for himself.
Really well.
I've just noticed there Steve Foster. Stephen Foster's put on there, what a player too, still gives you nightmares. I presume you're talking about Dougie there, are you, Foz? And then obviously at the end of your time at Palace, you go to Colchester, and obviously you come into the end of your career there. What's going through your head in terms of what you want to do? You've started coaching by that point of view.
Yeah, I started at Palace slightly. Just every now and then I'd go and work with Ken. He's at Arsenal now. And I go and do work with the 16s on a Thursday night with him or a Tuesday night, and do bits and pieces, because in my head I started to think that maybe this is something I was going to go down. But when I agreed to leave Crystal Palace, because I had to come home, I wasn't particularly playing much under Ian Holloway, and living away from home. I am a family man. I love being at home, and being unhappy off the pitch and playing sort of kept it okay. But when you weren't playing and you were home half, right, I need to go. And it was actually Brian Crewe at Ipswich mentioned me to Joe Dunn, who was the manager at Colchester. To be fair, it couldn't have worked out. It couldn't have worked. We lived in Ipswich, so it couldn't have worked out any better. You know, I literally came home and played for Colchester. But it had a real different role at Colchester. It was a very, very young team. So I sort of came in as a senior player, but so I was sort of coaching within the dressing room.
Right.
But then at night time, then what I'd organised with Brian Crewe, who was absolutely brilliant, was then I was going off and working in Ipswich's academy at night times, doing the under 14s, under 15s, under 16s. I was working with them, so that's how. And then once I started, then I was off. I loved it, and it's exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah, and it's quite an interesting one, that role that you took up at Colchester stroke, like Malden Tiptree, wasn't it? A bit of a like combined role, where you were taking the team. It's not something that you see too much of. It's actually quite interesting, if you can explain that.
Yeah, what it was, I'd finished. I ruptured my quad during training, and this was late on in the year, and I knew straight away. As soon as I'd ruptured my quad, because my body was giving up on me, unfortunately. I had loads of little niggles, and as soon as I did my quad, I knew it was a bad one. I got stretchered off the training ground, and as I'm getting carried off, in my head I'd retired.
Right.
I knew it. I never told anyone. I obviously told my wife that that's me. I'm done. In my head. So I come to an agreement with the chairman. Once I sort of got better, come to an agreement, and we were actually on holiday at the time. And Robbie rang me, and he said he'd had this project, and he bought a share into Malden and Tiptree, and his idea was to try and get the under 23s or under 21s, it was back then, try and get them some men's football. They were going to loan players out to Malden, and obviously they would be mixed with like the non-league lads, and hopefully progress the boys. You know, put them in a man's environment, a winning environment, and develop them quickly. It was. Well, the only thing was, it wasn't set up. They didn't have no players. They had nothing. So it was great for me. And Liam Bailey, who helped me do that, was unbelievable. We went off and we scouted players. We set up trials. We scouted non-league players, and we put it all together. And we were playing in the Ryman North. And the boys were, the under 23s were training every day at Colchester, which I was taking, and then coming and playing Tuesday, Saturdays at Malden and Tiptree. So it was really good to be part of, but it was tough, bloody tough.
Was it? What has there been success with it? How's it? What does it look like now?
I think it's changed. I think it was. What they wanted to do was try and get them promoted into the Prem, and obviously work themselves through the leagues, and obviously the players dropping down and helping out. But it was really, really tough, and I think the lads who dropped in from the 23s probably thought that they would rip this up,
right.
And they found out very, very quickly that lads who were playing in that league are no mugs. They're some real good players. I mean, we had my captain at the time, Matt Locke, was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He'd played hundreds of games, and he was our captain, centre midfield, and he was absolutely he was brilliant for us. But the lad should have looked at him and thought, he's a real good player, rather than coming in thinking, this is non-league, I'll tear this up, because they didn't tear it up. But I think it looks slightly different now. I think it's gone a bit more. I mean, Wayne Brown's took over, is doing a great job. I think it looks a bit more first-teamy. I watched their game in the FA Cup. It's a bit more first-teamy, it looks like. So I'm not quite sure what the relationship is now, and if it doesn't look like it was the same project that Robbie asked me to do. It looks different.
Right. Okay. And you worked when you was at Colchester. You worked with Kevin Keane, didn't you? A lot of time for Kevin Keane. He's very well.
Yeah, top man, Kev. Well, when the management left, so it was Tony Humes. He stepped down. Kevin came in, and Robbie, the owner, wanted me to assist him. So it was that was great. It was my first little look into actually being in a manager's dressing room and that side of it, and dealing with different things. But unfortunately, it didn't quite go to plan. I think we're at the moment. Kev we're going to take over. We needed a bit of a miracle, to be honest with you, to stay up. And unfortunately, we went down. But in terms of working with Kev, and the experiences that I had, when Kev ended up going, I took one game at Barnsley away. Barnsley were in the playoffs at the time.
Yeah.
So it was great for me. Obviously, I mean, I've managed once in the first division, in the league, and it was great. I mean, it couldn't have gone any madder, to be honest with you. 80 minutes, we conceded, went 2-1 down. Barnsley, a good team, obviously pushing for promotion. 2-1 down. My keeper gets injured in it. I've already made my 3 subs, so we're not only 2-1 down at Barnsley away. We're down to 10 men. I've got no keeper. Macaulay Bonne, who's now Charlton, who's doing really well, he goes in goal. So we went 4-4-1. I literally just sat and I kept him. And Borley was the assistant manager at the time, and he was saying, "Got to change it, got to change it." I was saying, "No, we'll get one chance. I know we're getting pinned back and we're getting battered, but we will get one chance, and we just need to take it." And lo and behold, in the 90-odd minute, Tom Lapsley pops up and we score and we draw the game 2-2. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. Like I think there's one thing winning a game or drawing a game like that as a player, and the feeling you get from that. But it's a total different feeling as a manager. I was just so proud of how the boys just dug in and fought for each other, and it was that was a special day, to be honest with you.
And before we get stuck into from the coaching side, is like, if you could, what season out of your playing career sticks in your head as the most enjoyable, the most memorable? At what club? Put you on the spot there.
Yeah. And it's been some. Obviously, I was fortunate enough to get promoted twice. One with Crewe, and obviously one with Wigan. Obviously, the seasons at Ipswich and Palace were brilliant, but I think it'd probably have to be the promotion year with Crewe, because half the team, we'd grown up together. You know what I mean? We'd actually come through from 9, 10, however what stage they joined. They come through. Like myself and Robert Hulse and Kenny Lunt had been there since we were 9, 10 years. Sorry?
Fozzie, you've got to mention Fozzie.
I mean, we've grown up. We've grown up together, and just to achieve something like that together was was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, superb. So going back to now to your coaching, so how does it work? You go from Colchester to Norwich's 18s, is that, or was there something in between that?
Yeah, no, I was doing Colchester 18s because when obviously Kevin left, they had a reshuffle and John McGreal took over. So I went back down in the academy, and then I just seen it advertised, the job. So I just put my CV in. I ended up getting an interview, and I'd never had an interview in my entire life. Didn't know what to do. Didn't know how to prep, and I rang my mate Liam Manning. And he helped me. He gave me how to deliver what they wanted, and this, that, and the other. But I went to the interview and I was actually really relaxed, considering, well, one, I was really relaxed because I didn't know what to expect, because I've never been to an interview, never done an interview. But the other thing was I was probably quite relaxed is because I was already in a job and I enjoyed my job, so I was under no pressure to get it. Anyway, I interviewed. I got asked back for a second interview, and in the end, they ended up offering me the job. So it was great experience being interviewed, by the way, a couple of times.
When you get the job.
Yeah, when you get the job, yeah.
Both ways.
The second one was a bit more nerve-wracking because I'm thinking, God, I've got half a chance here.
Yeah.
There's only 3 of us left. So no, it was good, and then obviously I do the 18s for a year or so, which was great, and then Matt Gill left to go with Paul Lambert to Ipswich, and Steve Weaver, the academy manager at Norwich, just offered me he sort of just gave me the job. He sort of laughed about a week later because he said, you know what, I've given you the job, but I never even asked you if you wanted the job. Do you actually want the job? So, oh yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, that's what I wanted. So that was good. It was good.
I mean, and the club itself is, it's, see, you talk now about Stuart Webber and about the structure of the club, and obviously it's so very well thought of, isn't it? And see, you please tell us where that really comes from.
Well, Stu came in. Stu's been there maybe a couple of years now, maybe more. Stu's come in and sporting director, and he's got a vision. He had a vision of how the club should play football, how the people should be on and off the pitch, how the players should be on and off the pitch. He's got this vision, and obviously he surrounded himself. Then he brought Steve Weaver in to be the academy manager. So he's brought people in that share his vision. And Delia and Michael have been absolutely brilliant as well. Obviously they share Stuart's vision, and Stuart shares their vision. And he's come in and he's gone right from top to bottom. It's been a pleasure to be a part of, and it was a bit like when I went into the Crystal Palace dressing room as a player, looking where it was and where it is now. It's sort of a similar thing from where it was when I walked in on the first day to where it is now. Is, the training grounds changed, the culture's changed, the environment, the people. It's just it's a pleasure to go to work every day.
Give me some examples of that, like in how has he gone in, and how's the culture been changed? What do you notice that wasn't there obviously before or not at other clubs?
I think in terms of playing style, Stuart's got a way he wants to play, and then he's gone out and he's found a manager that ticks them boxes in Daniel, and Daniel's been absolutely brilliant for the football club. And then we have it's like behaviours. We come up with like 6 values for the club, but these are not. I've been to other clubs and I've been to businesses, and you walk in and there's a value up on the wall of whatever, honesty or something like that. And it's like, oh, brilliant. But we have 6 values, and our behaviours we're made accountable. We have to behave and work in a manner like this. I mean, even our reviews, we have to go with our reviews. So, for instance, one of the values is commitment. Now, you have to actually write something that proves that you have been committed. So it's not just a token gesture value. You have to behave. You have to behave in the way of these values. You've got to show these values. And within that sense of what Delia and Michael have created with Stuart, that sense of belonging, where you're turning up every day and you want to work for the club. You want to do that extra bit. You want to go that extra mile, and you want to work for it because you feel you belong and you feel valued. Yeah. It's great how he's done it, but it's not all kisses and cuddles, which you know, Stuart's very good at his job, and I think that one of the reasons he is very good at his job, obviously, he's delivered, you know, his vision, and he's going to keep moving that forward. But he's obviously had to make real important decisions and real tough decisions. So, you know, a lot of people have, you know, left the club, unfortunately, and an example comes to mind. I'd just taken over the 23s. We had Exeter at home, and it was in the Premier League Cup, maybe Premier League Cup Premier League Cup, and we got battered. We were bloody awful. We got battered, and we had a coaches meeting a couple of weeks later, and Stu was taking it. Steve was in there, head of coaching, the PDP staff in there, and he said to me, that performance was unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable. It's so far away from my values and beliefs and I want the game to play. Is unacceptable. He said, I drove away from that game, and I'll be honest with you, I was in my head was, I'm going to sack him. I'm glad he didn't. But he said, when I got home, I sort of changed my mind on it. It was like, Stu, calm down. This is ridiculous. But, you know, it's that real ruthless side, which obviously I've lived in that environment for, well, it's the only environment I know. So it's not a great shock to me. But then on the other side of that, you know, when one of the boys make their debuts from the academy, there's text messages, there's emails going around. He's so appreciative of the academy and hard work. And we played Villa at home, and we played really well, the 23s, really, really well. And that night, he sent me a text message saying, loved it, thought you were excellent first half, like, well done. No, just them little, just them little things that I think
make a big difference, don't they?
Oh yeah, massive difference. But he doesn't have to do it, but he does do it.
No, I mean, when I came to see you last summer and came in to obviously see the work they've done, the training facilities are excellent. And, you know, you kindly introduced me to him, and what struck me, what was really interesting, was how honest and frank he was, talking about the club, talking about the manager, talking about yourself. It was just me and him, but I don't know him. And he just seems as though, you're going to get this all the time. There's transparency there. There's, you know, honesty there. But at the same time, you know, if you don't do your job, you don't do it properly, you don't stick to what he wants, then you say as quite a few people have found at the club are not longer any there.
Yeah, but he's like that with the fans as well. If interviews, he'll tell the fans the moment he came to the football club, he's been so transparent of the financial trouble the club was in and what he's going to do, and so there's no real. I don't think there's any surprises. There's no surprises to the fans. I mean, we actually have a team brief every couple of months where Stuart will stand there, or Zoe, any senior management will stand there, and they'll tell everyone into, so the footballing staff go down to Carrow Road with the Carrow Road staff, and they keep us informed all the time. I think they keep the fans informed all the time, so there's no surprises. There's no people scratching their head going like, "What's going on here? We don't know." I think that communication and that clarity of what we're doing and where we're going has been so important for the success of the club over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and then that communication is vital, isn't it? It's how things are communicated. But, and I mean, what does it look like from your side? So you've gone from the 18s to 23s. Obviously, you're like the transition now for players who have come through under 18s to now full-time footballers, and then the transition into basically the Premier League. So how does that look like on a communication basis with the other staff?
We've got in the new building, literally all the coaching staff sit together. So that's from foundation all the way up to myself and then Dean Wright and Steve, who's the academy manager and the head of coaching. So everyone's always in the conversation. So I could be having a conversation with Steve, and the foundation boys are listening to the conversations we're having, or Steve's having a conversation with the foundation boys. So there's a real, everyone's in the loop. Everyone sort of knows what's going on. And then within Steve's office, which is the door's always open. There's the boards up there with all the lads' names on, and then downstairs in our dressing room, there's all whiteboards, and every single team at the football club, all the lads' names are on the boards in the positions they play. So the constant communication of the coaches is everyone sort of knows where everyone is, like player-wise and what's going on. So in terms of me and Steve, Steve's got a very close relationship with Stuart. So, we have a conversation about a player. Stuart watches our games as much as he can. Depending on the first team, obviously the first team have got a game, then Stuart goes to the first team game rather than watch ours. But they know all the players, and I think that communication is, we're constantly talking about the players.
Yeah,
it's all about the players, and then my link really to the first team is sort of through Steve and Stuart, but also with Eddie, the assistant manager. We obviously see him out in the grass or whatever, or in his office, and we talk. First team know about all the players, and when one of the 23's players in the manager's eyes is ready for them, and it's not easy, by the way. He doesn't come across and go, "Oh, I need one for today," and take one, and then the lad comes back. Daniel doesn't do that. The boys have to really earn the right to get into that first team. To train with the first team squad, they have to earn the right to it. And once they've earned the right to it, that's it. They move into the first team and they start training with the first team, which this season we've had Adam Ida and Josh Martin have gone across, which is brilliant. But yeah, in terms of even conversations with Daniel and Eddie, they're so open. You could talk to them anytime. I had a problem. A problem. I had from the 2/3 with the 23's, from playing out from the back through the mid-third, we were really, really good. And we had a problem sort of mid-season where it was like just that last bit. We couldn't quite get that last bit. So I spoke to Daniel about it, and Daniel said, "Oh, come across and see us." So I sat down with Carl Pope, who's our analysis, and I put a few clips together just to show Daniel, instead of me trying to describe it, so much more powerful just showing him. And we went into the office opposite Stu's office, and we sat down, and it wasn't just Daniel in there. It was Eddie and CJ. It was the first team coaching staff came in and sat there, and we were in there for ages, just talking football, and then my problems and the sessions that he thought that could help me to do the problem. So, like I say, there's constant conversation, constant conversation. And I think because of that, I think everyone has real clarity of where individuals are at and where teams are at.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, and in your roles, you know, with the 23s, is it frustrating at times in terms of the players that you're working with? I know obviously others who I speak to 23s and sometimes get frustrated with the players that they're kind of left with. I mean, you mentioned there that obviously once the players go up, they're then with the first team. But, you know, you've got players going out on loan consistently. You've got obviously injuries, you know, 18s coming up to the 23s. What are the issues that you feel sometimes, you know, frustrate you?
Not necessarily frustrating. When I moved up from the 18s to the 23s, I thought I knew sort of what the 23s was about, but I didn't. All of a sudden, with the 18s, generally you've got quite a stable squad, and but with the 23s, it is like it's constantly changing. First team lads dropping in, then first team lads going. You've got lads going out on loan. You've got lads going into the first team. You've got 18s coming up. There's so many players at so many different parts of their development, and where they need to develop. It is well, when I first came in, it took me a while to get my head around it, to be honest with you. But now I understand it. So like I say, it's fine. I think you just need to understand that this 23s group it's not a team. The 23s team is not a team where you're going to go and probably win leagues. Or we don't run like that. Where the under 23s team they're all 22 years of age, because we're going to go and win the league. Yeah. No, we don't do that. We, off the top of my head, I think the oldest team sheet I wrote out was maybe 18, just under 19 years, I would have thought. 18 years, 9 months or something was probably the oldest team sheet I wrote out this year, where because we're prepping these boys, because they're all at different stages. We're prepping them for all different things. Not necessarily winning the league. Now, winning games is important because that's their next step. They have to get used to winning games and doing things that win you games. But it is more about them as an individual.
And would you say that then to be a very good 23s coach is the skill of that is handling and managing players who are at such different points of their careers or development? Is that the skill, the main skill involved of being a good 23s coach?
I think so. I think the key to it for me, I don't know if this is all coaching, or the key for it to me is actually getting to know the player. Get to know that player, not just pretend to know them or know them as a footballer. Oh, he's got a really good this and a really good that, but he's not very good at this. Actually get to know them as a person, because I think if you do that, they buy into you. If you buy into them, they'll buy into you. And I think for example, I think the highlight of my coaching up to now, one of the most important things that I've done is, over the past year, two members of my squad at different times have come up to me and said to me that they have issues, like they've got a real mental health issue. They hadn't told anyone else. They just felt they could talk to me. Now, for me, that's the best thing I've ever done in coaching, because if I've created a relationship with these players that they're comfortable enough to come and tell me something that they can't tell anyone else, and basically ask me for help, then that is by far the most powerful thing that I've done. So building relationships is so important. You know, if we're willing to sit down and talk about their feelings and this, that, and the other, then, you know, it's easy doing football. It's easy talking about football and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic to hear, and it probably leads me nicely into asking then about, you know, when you're releasing players, because obviously there are so many players that, you know, maybe more arguably, I don't know, between 18 to 23s that you obviously you're going to have to let go, and these days there are obviously you're in a much better position to be able to evidence that than obviously when we were getting a decision on a YTS or a pro contract. But how do you and the club, how do you deal with that?
We have very honest conversations with the players, and this is all the time. So one of Steve's big things is, doesn't matter what time it is in the year, Steve Weaver's our academy manager. The players should know where they're at.
Right.
At any possible time. So when you do have a meeting, whenever it is, it shouldn't come as a massive shock to the player. Now, it shouldn't be, you know, sorry son, but, you know, it's not going to work out for you here. It shouldn't be a, oh my God moment. They should know that through the chats you've been having with them, that they haven't been quite doing enough. So we don't, and I know this is us. A lot of clubs do it. They leave decisions very, very late, which, you know, which is fine. The majority of the time, once the coaching staff make a decision, then we tell our players. And if we can tell our players as early as possible, then we believe it gives them the best opportunity, the most time to be able to move on and try and get something else. Because when you tell a player that, unfortunately, he hasn't got a future at the club, psychologically, that's a massive, massive hit. So, you know, you could maybe write off a couple of weeks or a month already for them just trying to get their head around it. If you're telling them that in the end of April, when the season's finishing, then, you know, what's the lad going to do then? So, and then from that, we have a great welfare team of Clive and Carris and Matt Miller, who look after the lads all the way from the young lads all the way right up to the 23s. I mean, they're there for the staff as well. You know, the all psychologists, and they look after the lads, and we help the boys get trials. The likes of Greg Crane, who works with our YDP and PDP, he puts files together of the boys, and the analysis put clips together, and we send them round to different clubs, and we give them to the lads themselves so they can distribute it as well. The exit strategies and the welfare at this football club are the best by a million miles I've seen or heard of. And I'm not saying we're the best. I'm just saying what I've heard and seen for. I think the job that the welfare department do, and the coaches do, and they don't do it because they have to. They do it because they actually care. They do care about the kids. Is really good, really good.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's refreshing to hear, considering, you know, how many kind of horror stories, particularly lately, you know, you're reading stuff on the Athletic and whatever about players who've come through different clubs, and, you know, how they find out, because, like I say, it needs to be realistically. You should know, shouldn't you, really, that whether you're going to get a contract or not throughout the season. You know, sometimes it might be dependent on different things financially, but realistically, you should know. I
think sometimes, like, people don't like having them not so nice conversations. I don't think they like doing that, but I think that's sort of for me, when I was a player, I always, and maybe because we grew up with it, because Dario never danced around, did he?
No.
When he wanted to tell you something, he told you it, and he'd give you it right between the eyes, and it hurt sometimes. but then I think you end up respecting it. Now they've been totally honest with me. They haven't led me up the garden path or whatever. They've been totally honest with me, and that communication and clarity from minute one has been excellent. I'm not saying it doesn't make it. It's still bloody hard for the kids. I mean, I obviously got told from Roy when I was 29. I was 29 and played hundreds of league games. It's still bloody hard from being 16 to 29. But I think that how you do it and that care, during and after is so important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it sounds like a fantastic club to be at, and brilliant all the work that you're doing there. I mean, we're at 7 o'clock now, so best to I just there's been a few questions. If anyone wants to ask any questions, then please type them now. There's been a couple that will probably be very difficult to answer over a webinar. I mean, just regarding development of young players. I mean, practice. There's a lot of, obviously, in terms of, there's a question there from a Hanson, what types of practice is more suitable for a player at age 14 for the development? But I mean, realistically, in terms of where you go to get your resources, outside of the experience that you've already got, is there anything you could say to Hanson around that?
When I first started coaching, when I retired and then went off into Ipswich, it was great for me, because I basically 6 months, Brian Crewe and Liam Manning helped me so much within that 6 months. But the longer I've been coaching, just don't complicate the game. I mean, I was from where I was to where I am now, I just don't complicate it. I mean, I've seen young coaches in the past where I would look over on the pitch and there's 4 goals, 5 gates that you need to run through. There's a 1-touch zone, a 3-touch zone, an all-in zone, and it's like, I'm stood on the outside. I don't even know what's going on. Let alone, I mean, I would say that we came through the best academy of its time.
Yeah,
in my opinion, and the best education. Do you ever remember Dario or Steve Holland, who now is Gareth Southgate's number 2 and is an outstanding coach? Do you ever remember being in a session where there was 4 goals, 8 gates, 5 in zones,
no.
4 touches here, no touches there? I don't remember that. And I think it took me to, obviously, reflecting on that, to go, I'm complicating this far too much.
Yeah.
Complicating it. And if I'm complicating it in my head, God knows what the players will be thinking.
Yeah. I mean, Steve Holland, I mean, Darrow's sessions were brilliant, but obviously having spent our time for 2 years every day there with Steve Holland, his sessions to playing as a player were just brilliant, weren't they? You just loved it. Yeah. And like I say, it wasn't complicated. It was just the way that the design was simple, and it was, you're getting the best out of you as well. And obviously there's the objectives that he's trying to achieve out of it. There's a few more questions come through. David Buckley, how much do the academies take notice of player development centre kids, and what's happening within the community setups?
Yeah, we've got obviously we're actually at the moment sort of building the nest at Norwich, and we've obviously got a very very good scouting network that's locally and obviously nationwide. But in terms of the local kids, like I say, we've got Colin Watts who runs it, and Watts has been in Norwich for about 120 years, I think. He knows everything, everyone, all the local coaches. Like I say, all the local kids were being watched, and the network that he's created, and like I say, with the nest being built as well for the community, which is, I mean, you've seen our new training ground, Brownie. The nest is right near Norwich Airport. It's a new facility. It's going to be similar to like the new bit at our place. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The community work that the club are doing, it is great. So I'd like to think that all the local kids have got a real opportunity.
Yeah. Mansour's stuck his hand up again and asked, it's a difficult one, this one. What does the coach expect from the goalkeeper to be in the first team? I mean, in terms of you're an outfield player, and how does it work with the goalkeepers? That you just work with the goalkeeping coaches and...
Yeah, but I work with Tom Wheels, our goalkeeping coach. So Tom's obviously in charge of the coaching, and every single morning we have meetings. So every morning we'll have a planning meeting about the session, which the sessions will already be done a week before. So let's say if we're going into next week, then all the sessions I will do over the weekend, I'll email them to all the coaches, and it'll be like, right, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to get out of them. Tell me your thoughts. So, and obviously Tom sees these sessions, and basically we'll build it round what each individual needs, and that includes the goalkeepers as well. So obviously I've an opinion on goalkeepers, but I'm not an expert on goalkeeping. I mean, they do things and talk about things that I'm like, I've been in the game God knows how long, I haven't got a clue what you're going on about. So it's that real trust that we have in Tom. Tom's really good at his job, and he's working with some really good young goalkeepers. So within the planning meetings and the review meetings, we make sure that we hit all their targets or what they need.
Yeah, good. There's a couple of people. Chris Cutler has put many thanks. 7 years at Crewe as well, and very honest assessment of Dario and the setup. Enjoyed listening. Have to go. Colin Little, ex-Crewe, obviously at Man United now, has put the detail in the simple practices. What Steve and Dario put on were the real genius, helps improve players, which is exactly right. Yeah. Chris McGuinn is at Nottingham Forest, I believe. What the qualities do you feel a player needs to set from the 23s academy into the first team environment?
Character for me. I think that's right from the start. I think their character is character in a footballer is the most important thing. I mean, if you look at the four boys now who've recently gone in from our academy, or recently, so you've got Ben Godfrey, Todd Cadwell, Max Aarons, Jamal Lewis. Every single one of them their character's outstanding. And as much as, I mean, I didn't work with Jamal, didn't really work with Jamal or Todd or Ben. Max was a first year scholar when I came in. And in terms of character, what I'm talking about is one, how hard he works. And you didn't have to poke Max with a stick. You didn't have to lead Max anywhere. It was driven by him. And like the other four boys, they took responsibility for their own career. They were independent in their thinking, but obviously you helped and guided these boys, but it was driven by them. And in terms of character on the pitch and off the pitch, they're absolutely brilliant, and there's no surprise. It doesn't surprise any of us at the football club that they're doing so well as they are, is because of their character.
Good. Paul Collins, do Norwich have player profiles to fit the playing style set by Stuart, and does the club recruit according to that style?
Yeah, we've got player profiles all the way through. So coaching staff, senior staff can come and go, but the playing style will change. Sorry, the playing style will not change. The player profiles are all in. So if you're going to come and play for Norwich City and you're a right back, there is a profile for right back all the way through the team. There is a profile. There's physical, psychological, technical, tactical. There's a full profile. So all the teams, you're not going to have one team that's, you're not going to have like for example, the under 14s who are all 6'1" and we're going to shell it long and we're going to run after it. No, every single team from foundation all the way up to the first team, have a style of play which Stuart and Daniel and Steve Wheeler expect to see all the way through, and we have, like I say, we have a profile of player that fits that style.
Good. Just one more, because obviously we're dragging on now, so you can let you go. It's Don Walsh. What characteristics or coaching strategies did you experience as a player from your coaches, managers, and consider as good practice, which you now try to implement in your own coaching?
I think the level of detail, that you go into. I go back to Steve and Dario, and the patience that they showed. They showed us, and then sort of like the vision they had for the end game of it. Right, Chris Brown, David Wright, they're here now. Now, how do we need to develop them to get them here? What do we need to do to help them get there? And then just be patient and supportive along that route. Some of the boys are going to get it straight away. Some of them are going to get exactly what you want straight away, and they're going to fly. Others are not quite going to get there, and you have to be patient with that. And you have to, and it's not, you know, it's not the players' fault unless they're not working hard enough. That's one thing. If the player's not working hard enough, I think it's their fault. Yeah. If they can't get something technically or tactically, I think that's the coaches. It's up to us. It's up to us to solve that problem, to break it right down, to enable the player to understand it, and then just be patient and supportive on the way of that journey. Brilliant.
I mean, there's a few other questions there, but which are going to be difficult to answer. But if you'd like to email in, and then I can ask David to maybe to answer those, and we'll get the responses back via email. Before I thank you, I mean, thanks to everyone for joining us again on the player, the coach, the person. This Saturday we have Stephen Taylor, the ex-Newcastle. You ever played against him, Wrighty?
Yeah, I think we did. I think we maybe it was part of that Newcastle team that romped the championship, that had Andy Cowlin and all them boys. I'm sure he was in that team. I think we played him last game of the season, I think, which was at Newcastle, which was quite nice.
Yeah, I bet. But Steve, he's in Newcastle. He's in Wellington now at Wellington Phoenix. So that's 9 a.m. UK time, 12 p.m. So UAE time. To be talking to him about his career and the different. He's got an interesting story. He's been over in the States, and he's obviously now over in New Zealand, and talking to him about his career, what he wants to do after it, and also obviously the Newcastle. I'm just Foz seen that. And obviously the Newcastle.
You are just merging into your wallpaper, mate.
I need to put the light on. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure, Mr. Wright. I really appreciate you coming on. It's a great insight into obviously your coaching and also the club at Norwich. So thank you for that, mate.
No, thanks, mate. Really appreciate it, and thanks for everyone for getting involved and having a watch.
Good stuff. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. Take care. Cheers, Wrighty. I'll speak to you soon.